If I hadn't noticed the tremor in her fingers and the way she pushed her plate away, the story of my father's wedding would have ended in silence. Instead, a napkin, an EpiPen, and a blinking AED changed everything, especially the way he said my name. I grew up where the land runs flat and honest, grain silos for skyline, trains for lullabies, and a wind that never learns to shut up. Maple Ridge, Kansas, sits an hour from Wichita and a world away from anyone's big dreams unless your dreams look like acres and inventory. My father, Gregory Ellis, sold trucks and combines across 3 counties, the kind of man who measured a person by their handshake and their taxable income. When he smiled, you could almost see the sales pitch forming. I'm Nora. 28. I work the night shift as a certified nursing assistant at Cottonwood View, a long-term care home with a view of a cottonwood that looks like it's heard every secret in town. I clock vitals, coax stubborn pills past stubborn lips, and learn whole histories from people whose families have forgotten to ask. On paper, my job description is short. In real life, it's everything from detective to shoulder to lean on. Dad calls it wiping old folks, like the 2 words carry all the proof he needs that I aimed low. He had plans for me, accounting, maybe, or a sales route to groom me into Ellis Motors' heir. I had other plans: finish my prerequisites, build experience, sit for nursing school while paying rent with honest work. We'd found a way to stop arguing by not talking about it at all. Then came the cream-embossed invitation: Gregory Ellis and Patricia Monroe request the honor of your presence. It was his second wedding, a summer Saturday at Cottonwood Ridge Lodge, the fancy hill outside town where the long grass turns gold at sunset. My RSVP sat on the counter for a week. I finally checked yes because my mother, a school secretary who still believes in second chances, squeezed my hand and said, "Attendance is not endorsement, sweetie." At rehearsal dinner, I learned my seat was near the back with 2 cousins who thought healthcare meant gym memberships. Dad introduced me with that patented chuckle. "This is Nora. She keeps the nursing home running, says she likes it." The pause landed like a smirk. He went on to sing the praises of Patricia's nephew, a corporate counsel from Omaha. People nodded at him like he was a podcast they already loved. I reminded myself I hadn't come for applause. Maple Ridge lives on politeness. You say evening, even when you're tired. I smiled. I ate the brisket. I left early under the excuse of a shift that didn't exist. On my drive home, the wheat fields looked like a sleeping animal. I rehearsed boundaries in my head and wondered if I'd need them. Morning of the wedding broke hot and cloudless. Thunderheads teetered on the Oklahoma line but never committed. I parked among polished SUVs and farmer pickups, the Ellis Motors banner fluttering over a golf cart like sponsorship. Inside, the staff in crisp black aprons set water goblets on linen, and the florist pinned sprays of prairie grass with white roses I'd only ever seen in magazines. I found a quiet hallway, texted my friend Joe, an LPN with a laugh you can hear down 3 corridors, that I'd survived this, and slipped my small first aid pouch into my purse out of habit. Most people bring lip balm. I carry nitrile gloves and 2 pairs of shears because life has taught me that when something goes wrong, it seldom asks your permission first. What I didn't know then: an almond tart on a dessert tray, a misplaced EpiPen, a microphone with a frayed cord, and 1 sentence from my father would form a knot I'd spend the rest of the day untying. Ceremony seats faced west, toward a stand of cottonwoods that made their own kind of chapel. The officiant practiced into the mic, static, then a clean line of sound. Guests arrived in layers, church friends in Sunday best, dealership partners shaking hands as if they'd invented the concept, Patricia's people from Topeka wearing a shade of confidence our county rarely sees. Dad was in his element, sun-caught and popular. He clasped shoulders, kissed cheeks, narrated his own generosity with the ease of a man used to hearing yes. He made it to my row and paused. Dress looks nice, Nora, he said, and for a half-second I wondered if we might skip the ritual. Then his eyes slid to the neighbor across the aisle. My girl sticks with the nursing home. Says caring's her calling. Better her than me, huh? The neighbor laughed. It was a nice laugh, it didn't know better. I swallowed the reply, heating my throat. The wind rattled the leaves like a warning. Patricia's mother, Lorraine, took the seat in front of me, silver hair, careful lipstick, hands that trembled slightly but held dignity like a keepsake. I offered water, she accepted and asked about the cottonwood. We traded stories about thunderstorm smells and the way trains make you homesick for places you've never lived. She had a medical alert bracelet half hidden under the lace of her sleeve. I filed it away the way you do when your work makes observation a reflex. The processional began, ring bearer with a jaw set like a linebacker, flower girls scattering petals and apologies. Patricia looked beautiful in a way that felt earnest, like she'd practiced joy and finally decided to keep it. Dad's grin beamed at a crowd that kept beaming back. Vows were sweet, Midwestern, unadorned. Someone dabbed at tears. Someone else checked a market app under the program. When the kiss came, it drew the loudest cheer Maple Ridge had mustered in years. We all stood into the heat and the grin and the shimmer of something new. Cocktail hour washed over the lawn. Canapés did their rounds, the band in the old barn tuned a fiddle line that lifted the hair on my arms. I drifted near the dessert table, said no twice to pushy pecan squares, and watched Lorraine. Her tremor had sharpened. She was reading a label too slowly, lips forming syllables that wouldn't quite line up. Her son, Patricia's brother, juggled an ant, a phone call, and a plate. He set the plate down and walked away. I stepped closer. Any allergies, ma'am? I kept my tone airy, like a stranger making conversation with a stranger about weather. Just tree nuts, she said, distracted. Been good for years. Let's keep it that way, I smiled, and nudged the almond tarts toward my side of the table before the servers arrived with a platter twice as nut-covered and half as labeled. Back by the head table, Dad raised a glass. He opened his mouth, but the sound system cracked, then squealed. The mic lost fidelity, found it, then died. People laughed. Maple Ridge knows how to wait out a malfunction. While the DJ swapped chords, Dad pitched his voice the old-fashioned way. Folks, he boomed, and the prairie air did the rest. Thank you for loving us enough to wear suits in July. He went on gratitude, a joke about golf carts, a kind line for Patricia's family. Then his eyes found me. And to my daughter, he said, grin back on its rails, who keeps things tidy over there at Cottonwood View. I guess somebody's got to do it. A ripple of polite laughter. The kind that forgives without asking permission. The DJ fixed the mic, toasts rolled forward like a wheat truck down a gentle grade, steady, predictable. The band began its set, the kids discovered the miracle of a dance floor. For a half hour, everything was fine, and then the fine began to fray. Lorraine touched her throat. It wasn't dramatic at first, no gasping, no shouting, just the small, deliberate movements of someone negotiating with their own body. She pressed 2 fingers to the notch of her collarbone and blinked slow. Her cheeks flushed not with heat but in that rosy, wrong way. I moved without looking like I was moving. Ms. Lorraine? I said softly. How are we doing? Prickly, she said, voice thickened. She dabbed at her lips with the corner of a napkin. Silly puffiness. Any chance of nuts? I asked, and tilted my head toward the dessert table. Her eyes flicked there, then back to me, and a fast, honest fear crossed them. I don't think, she swallowed. The swallow stuck. Okay, I said in the tone we keep for 2 a.m. hallways and sudden spills. We're going to be boring and careful. Can I look at your bracelet? She offered her wrist, the engraving glinted, tree nut allergy, carry EpiPen. Do you have your pen in your bag? I asked. Patricia's got it, she said, breath a little hollower now. For photos, I didn't want the strap. No blame, not here, not now. I looked up and met the eye of a server. Could you let the coordinator know we need their medical kit and the AED brought over? Not panic, just prompt. I smiled like we were discussing another tray of canapes. The server's pupils went wide, she nodded and vanished. Let's sit you a little taller, I said to Lorraine, guiding her back in the chair and tucking a rolled napkin between her shoulders and the seat to open her airway. I placed 2 fingers at the pulse point, present, a touch rapid. A faint wheeze threaded her next breath. Joe, I texted with 1 thumb, nuts allergy, wedding, symptoms early, call 911 to Cottonwood Ridge Lodge, give my name, confirm AED on site. Joe's reply arrived like a siren in text form, on it. Timestamp started. Across the lawn, Dad laughed with a cluster of friends, a perfect postcard of comfort. I scanned the crowd for Patricia and found her by the band, mid-conversation, bouquet on a chair. Ms. Lorraine, we're going to help your body remember what to do, I said. I kept my voice calm and low, the sound of a safe porch. Can you try a slow inhale through your nose, out through pursed lips? Good. Again. The coordinator appeared, cheeks flushed with usefulness, medical kit in both hands, AED slung like a purse. EpiPens are in the box, she said, a little breathless. We restock after any event with. Thank you, I said, already snapping open the case. I checked the expiration, pulled the safety cap, bared a few inches of Lorraine's thigh with the privacy a linen napkin affords, and said, small poke. The pen hissed its salvation. I counted 1, 2, 3, steady against the world's compulsion to rush. Removed. Massaged lightly. Set the timer on my phone. Observed. Better, she said after a beat. The wheeze thinned, then mostly went. Her shoulders sagged in that beautiful, exhausted way bodies have when help lands on time. Ambulance is en route, the coordinator said, easing the AED down beside us like a talisman. 8 to 10. We'll keep her upright and monitored, I said. Someone find Patricia quietly. She doesn't need to run. The coordinator nodded, grateful to be told what to do. Most emergencies are 90% choreography and 10% luck. Today, the choreography would be enough. Patricia slipped in, eyes huge, hand to her mouth. Mom? We're okay, Lorraine and I said together, a harmony I loved immediately. Patricia touched her mother's shoulder and then touched mine, a wordless thank you I felt in the angle of her palm. And that's when the mic squealed again and Dad, who did not yet know a thing, boomed, "Let's give it up for Maple Ridge hospitality," while the back half of the wedding had gone very still around a chair, a napkin, and a woman who was breathing better than she was 5 minutes ago. Paramedics arrived with a competence that made my skin prickle, clipboard questions, a reassessment, a second dose packed but not needed. They asked what I'd done, I told them. They asked who I was, I told them that, too. Patricia insisted on riding along, bouquet finally abandoned to the chair like a costume after the curtain drops. The siren pulled away soft. The band vamped. People didn't know whether to sit or hover, so they did both. Somewhere between the drink station and the head table, the story leapt like prairie fire. The bride's mom had a reaction. "That girl with the dark braid, that's Greg's daughter, she handled it." Dad blinked at me from 20 feet, like I'd rearranged the furniture of his world without asking. He closed the distance, one hand tentative against the shoulder of his brand new suit. "Everything. She's stable," I said. "EMS will take her to St. Luke's to monitor. Patricia went with her. It'll be okay." My voice was practical, not proud, but it carried anyway, and the closest table exhaled. Dad opened his mouth. You could see the joke try to form and then think better of it. He cleared his throat. "You, knew what to do." "It's my job to notice and to act," I said simply. The jest had nowhere to land. The coordinator hovered. "The hospital says the AED should stay on site, but, obviously, keep it near the head table. Just in case." "Always near the heart of the room," I said, and she relaxed like I'd given her a rule to write in a manual. We tried again with the reception because that's what people do here, you keep going. The band started Wagon Wheel, and the dance floor obliged. Kids wove in and out of legs. Someone turned the mic down to a setting that didn't scream. Dad gave the room a brief update that sounded like a press release for compassion. The applause was generous and uncertain. I found a chair near the back, texted Joe my thanks, and allowed my body to catch up with my brain. Adrenaline is a loud friend. When it leaves, the quiet can startle you. I sipped water and watched a story attach itself to me in real time, hands pointing, heads nodding toward wherever I went. It wasn't hero glow. More like relief given a name tag. At some point, the local news van made the gravel crunch. In Maple Ridge, that's not opportunism, it's community ritual. The reporter was the same woman who covers county fairs and school board meetings. She approached gently, microphone lowered, and asked whether I'd say a few words about recognizing anaphylaxis and how every venue should know where their AD lives. I hesitated, then thought of Lorraine, of the napkin, the pen, the breath we got back. "I'll talk if we make it a PSA," I said. "No dramatics. Just what to look for and who to call." We kept it simple: rash, swelling, trouble breathing, call 911, use the pen if you have it, monitor, be calm, be kind. She nodded, we wrapped, and the camera went to interview the coordinator about preparedness. The whole segment later would sound like a YouTube tutorial delivered on prairie grass. Dad watched the exchange with a complicated face I didn't have the energy to untangle. When the reporter moved on, he came to my table and sat, really sat, both feet grounded, a posture I'd rarely seen on him. He put his hands flat so I could see they were steady. "Nora," he said. No smirk, no stage voice. "I've been an idiot. I didn't let him off the hook." "You've been unkind," I said. "And loud about it." He nodded once, like pain agreed. When Patricia's mama dabbed her lips with that napkin, I thought she was warming up for a speech. "You saw something I didn't, and you moved. All the times I joked about your job, I didn't understand that what you do is the point." The room didn't hush for us. Weddings don't script private apologies, but a circle of quiet found our table anyway. I could feel the edges of it, like shade at the edge of a barn. "Thank you," he said. The words were simple, unremarkable in any other context. Here, they felt like a hinge turning. "Let's check on her at the hospital after you've sent everyone home," I said. "Bring the bouquet. It'll look ridiculous in the ER and make the nurse smile." He laughed then, something unperformed, and for the first time all day I saw the man my mother had once loved before mortgages and margins took over his vocabulary. "Deal," he said. By twilight the lodge had emptied into fireflies. The florist boxed what could be saved, the DJ coiled cables that smelled like summer sweat and ozone. Dad and I drove to St. Luke's in 2 cars because we're both the kind of stubborn that appreciates an exit strategy. In the ER, a nurse recognized me from the newsvan's B-roll, which in this town means she asked if I'd come back next Thursday to help teach a free CPR class to high school coaches. Lorraine looked pinker, better, annoyed at the fuss and the way resilient women get. Patricia sat at her bedside holding the bouquet like it might confuse the monitors into gentler numbers. When Dad entered, the temperature of the room rose by 3 degrees and then steadied. "You clean up nice, Gregory," Lorraine said, voice dry again. "You gave us a scare," he managed. "No, dear. I gave your daughter a chance to be exactly who she is. And she took it." Lorraine winked at me and I loved her all over again. We didn't stay long, ERs deserve their quiet, but we stayed long enough for Dad to say thank you to everyone in Scrubs and mean it from a place beneath his sales voice. On the way out, he fumbled for something in his jacket pocket and came up with the place card from my table, my name in script that didn't belong to our family. He slipped it into my hand. "Keep this," he said. "It's the last time your name sits at the back." The next weeks were Maple Ridge in montage. The news segment turned into a church bulletin about 80s. The lodge added laminated allergy cards to their dessert displays. Cottonwood View asked if I'd lead an in-service on anaphylaxis protocols and paid me with both a stipend and a sheet cake. Joe and I built a slide deck titled "Not on Our Watch" that made my dad cry quietly in the back row the first time he saw it. He thought he'd hidden it. He did not. My phone rang twice with out-of-town numbers, one from a nursing program coordinator who'd seen the clip and offered to talk through scholarship options, another from a rural clinic seeking a comm head for their evening triage desk. I wasn't ready to move jobs, but I took both calls and put them where hope lives. Dad started visiting Cottonwood View on Tuesdays with a box of bakery kolaches, the good kind with poppy seed. He learned residents' names. He learned that the gentleman in 204 likes coffee half CAF and that Mrs. Porter tells dirty jokes with no dirty words. He watched me rebutton a cardigan on a woman whose hands had forgotten buttons. "You do holy work," he said in a whisper so private I almost pretended not to hear it. I decided not to make him say it twice. We never rewrote the past, this isn't that story, but we did lay planks over its worst stretches. A class he asked to fund for town coaches, an Ellis Motors billboard with a new line at the bottom, proud sponsor of Maple Ridge 80s. People made fun of the font. People also learned where their closest AED lived. At dusk one evening, Dad and I stood under the cottonwood that names the care home and watched lightning veer around town like a polite driver. "You always going to stay overnight on weekends?" he asked, not in a controlling way, but in the way that meant I want to learn your life. "For now," I said. "School in the spring if it works out. Night shifts pay better while I study. And the residents tell their best stories after 10. He nodded. "I'd like to pay for a class," he said, and when I stared, he added quickly, "Not because I think you can't. Because I'd like to be part of what you're building, if you'll have me. It's strange where forgiveness lives." That night, it lived in the way the cottonwood leaves clapped for us like a small, enthusiastic choir. A year later, my father's wedding exists in Maple Ridge memory the way comets do, rare, bright, and still discussed at the feed store while people pretend they're just there for twine. The lodge has a framed photo of an AED in the hallway with a caption that makes teenagers snort and grandmothers nod. The band added a joke verse to a favorite song about reading ingredient labels like they're treasure maps. I'm 6 months into an RN program that fits around shifts and a life I like. My name badge sits heavier on my collar now, the kind of weight that feels earned. At graduation, if all goes well, I will have a job offer from that rural clinic waiting in a town even flatter than ours. Jo says she'll carpool on weekends for kolaches and gossip. Dad has not transformed into an easy man. He still argues with the radio. He still believes a handshake can fix more than it can. But he also keeps a pocket mask on his keychain and can tell you, unprompted, the steps for the recovery position with the solemn pride of someone who has finally found a test he wants to pass. On the wall of his office, next to a photo of Patricia in her wedding dress, hangs a shadow box. Inside, a folded linen napkin, a printout of the AED maintenance schedule, and the place card with my name. Sometimes, late after a shift, I sit on the concrete steps at Cottonwood View and watch the night freight stitch together the dark. I think about Lorraine's pulse under my fingers, the softness of the pen, the way Patricia's hand bridged the space between us like family can when it's trying. I think about Dad's face when he said thank you, each syllable a rung on the ladder he was finally willing to climb. People around here love to say we take care of our own. It's true, but it's also too small. We take care of each other, own or not, because breath is a communal resource and courage looks best when it's passed hand to hand. In a county where the sky writes the weather in all caps, we learn to read signals before the storm hits. That's all I did on a blue July day at a wedding that could have ended in grief and instead turned into a lesson plan. If you're watching this and you've been told your work is small, too ordinary to admire, ask yourself who would miss you if you didn't show up. The answer is your map. And if you ever find yourself at a dessert table with labels that look like they were printed in a hurry, do what nurses and CNAs and night shift saints do, tilt the tray, ask the question, keep an eye on the pulse of the room. When people tell the story now, they like to make me sound brave. Maybe. But bravery, out here, isn't fireworks. It's a napkin, a name, a number. It's knowing where the AED lives. It's a daughter staying close to a mother who is not her own. It's a father learning to say his child's name without an apology hidden in the middle. It's the wind, finally, learning to hush for one clear breath. And when the wind hurries back, as it always does, I smile and think, we're ready.